Radhe Radhe. Welcome to the beginning of another live Sangha. May this be an offering to Sri Radha Krishna. And welcome. As we await our first guests to arrive, allow me to set the intentions for this space as being a welcoming, all-inclusive environment, open to everyone regardless of background, identity, how they're feeling, caste, creed, belief system, you name it. Everyone is welcome. So I hope you find yourself feeling accepted, comfortable, and happy to be here. I know I am. Good morning, Inevitable. I hope we come together as fellow spiritual seekers to uplift each other in this chaotic symphony of life, share positive sentiments, and just relate in one another's experiences. Hello, Michelle. Hello, Shells. And hello, user 227. You share that you fell asleep last night and woke up at 6:55 in the morning and I was still talking. How am I feeling? Good. Yes. I thought that'd be funny. Hello, Spirit. And hello, Positivity Troll. Hello, Isabella. And hello, Haley Queen. Now, both of you sent a heart me at almost the exact same time. So thank you, Haley, for your heart me. And Isabella for yours as well. Radhe, Radhe. And thank you, Haley, for your team bracelet too. Jai Sita Ram. Happy to hear it, James. Vibrating Buddha, you shared that you listened to my ASMR in the sauna today. Interesting, I've never thought about ASMR in a sauna. What an environment for that. Tell me about it. What was that experience like? Hello, Jules. Hello, Melinda. I trust that you all, although maybe experiencing various challenges in your life at this time, are overall doing as best as you can, given what knowledge and experience you have acquired in this lifetime and potentially many more. It was great. I was reading the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. That's on Karma Yoga. I like that. Yeah. I should try that sometime. And hello, Wyatt from Finland. Hello, Tori. Hello, Laura. And hello, Kaiser. And good evening, Chris Owens. Now, since you all are so early, I have a question of the day for all of you, if you're interested. My question today is a practical one, an exercise on speech. Today, I am wondering, what is an example sentence setting a boundary respectfully? 2 days ago, we asked on Solar Plexus Chakra Tuesday what your favorite part of yourself was that you wanted to refine. And many people gave the idea of openness without getting overwhelmed. And so yesterday on Heart Chakra Wednesday, I asked a follow-up question, which is, how do we get open without getting overwhelmed? And many people said, by setting boundaries. So, how can we set boundaries respectfully? And I will turn the background music down a little bit. Thank you for telling me, Mr. Willie. And thank you, Haley, for your quintet of roses as well. Hariom Tat Sat. And thank you, Whisper, for your heart me too. Jai Sitaram. And yes, I had a great sleep. Thank you, Stargazer. Purple, you share. Thank you, brother. I hear you, but respectfully, you have the wrong audience. That is a very good example. Thank you, Purple. Doom Knight, you shared the sentence, I won't speak with you until you lower your voice. That's a good one. Yeah. And Frungi, you ask, how would I respectfully refuse to turn the music background down? Well, you know, I think that the music volume is secondary to people hearing me out, and so I don't think I would refuse. There's no excuse I could come up with to keep it loud and overstimulating or overwhelming. And you share the sentence, no thank you. I am happy sitting by myself. That's great. Auntie, you share, thank you. I appreciate you and your opinion. Then walk away. Who's talking to me in Hindi? Manic places. I'm afraid my Hindi isn't good enough to know what you are asking. Although I assume it's how am I doing? Perhaps. Sheepish sauce, you share that you cannot afford the leniency you are asking for. You used it on your former partner a few days ago. This one already has its experience being used in the real world. That's great. Thank you for sharing that, sheepish sauce. Stargazer, you share, I love you, but I don't need your help right now. Thank you very much. I love that. Yeah. In spirit, you share, I respect us both. That's why I say no thanks. Zealot, you share, I'd like to support you, but I don't have the energy right now. Let me help you find someone else. That's a powerful one, indeed. Michelle, you ask, should we be apologizing for setting a boundary? You seem to always start with, I am sorry. I have found that it's not necessary. It seems like many people here, for example, start with thank you, which seems to be a more powerful one. Because when we apologize, then that assumes that we are doing something wrong. But when we say thank you, it assumes the other person is doing something right by listening to our concerns or sharing their own. Ellen, you share, I understand you to the fullest, but I see it in this way. Yeah. Chris Owens, you share, thank you for your input. I will take that opinion on board. I like that. Maggie, you share, telling I feel and then explaining why. I like that. That's a powerful technique. Observing something and then sharing how that makes you feel. You share, Isabella, by learning from mishaps, vowing not to partake in them. Oh, mishaps. The music is still a bit loud. No problem, I can turn it down a little more. Thank you for telling me. All right. The Hindi speaker said, I am so beautiful. Yeah, that is even kinder than what I had assumed. Asking how I am doing. Dhanyavad. And thank you, Mr. Rocket Shot, for your heart me and team bracelet. Radhe, Radhe. Firefly, you share, I'm not telling you how you have to talk to me. I'm telling how I feel when you talk to me this way. That's a great one. Thank you, Usha, for your rose too. Radhe, Radhe. And good evening, Painted Lady. Whisper, you share, my cup already runneth over at the moment. That's a good one. I like that. That it's not about the person, it's about our own ability at the moment. And Sazrar, you share that sometimes we can say thank you instead of sorry. Thank you for waiting for me instead of sorry for being late. Yeah, that's a great example. And you share that you went NC with a sister by saying, I don't want a relationship with you anymore. It seemed firm/kind. What is NC? I am unfamiliar with this acronym. I think it's firm, that's for sure. I'm not confident the other person would take it as kind, though. No contact, I see. And thank you, Kills, for your heart me. Ariom Tat Sat. Alfie, you share that you won't ask them to talk a certain way. You would say that the way that they speak is how I will. Ooh, what a cliffhanger. The TikTok comment section. Thank you, Zealot, for your octet of cloud bread. Radhe, Radhe. Gaia, you share that I simply must take care of myself. That's a good sentence. Yeah. And thank you, Painted Lady, for your trio of team bracelets too. Jai Sita Ram. Zealot, you share that you like thank you for your patience. Instead of, sorry it's taking so long, you use that a lot at work. That's a great idea. Yeah. Zealot, you also share that you wish you had cloud breads where you're from. Me too. I like this answer, Manic Places. There is no boundary for the love I have for you. I appreciate that. Hello, G2 Infinity. Mischief, you like, that just won't work for me without an explanation. And I like that. Emphasizing the lack of a necessity to always explain. It's great. Thank you everyone for exploring this difficult topic together. No one likes setting boundaries, of course. If it were easy, everyone would. But I think we've had a lot to think about so far. So I appreciate everyone's input. To me, it sounds like a theme behind a lot of these is that it's not about restricting anyone else's ability. It's that our own abilities have limitations, and so we're simply sharing that. Thank you, Manic Places, for your rose as well. Radhe, Radhe. You're very welcome, Auntie. I agree. It is about our own self-respect. Yeah. Alright. As many of you know, I like to begin my lives with the question of the day, and then a short reading. And then afterwards we have an open floor for spiritual questions and answers. The book that we're reading is Roar of the Ganges. Ganges is a river in India. The Sanskrit name is the Ganga. And it's a very spiritually revered river. It is seen as a goddess of knowledge and liberation. It is written by a Swami, a spiritual renunciant, named Brahmananda, and he is the guru of one of our audience members, like yourself, who has decided to share his guru's book with us for our own benefit and for the support of his own guru. And it's a wonderful book so far. It takes place from the perspective of his guru, who was then known as Mark, before he took sannyas and became a Swami, renouncing his past name and everything. This chapter is called Exploring New Tracks. Tuesday, March 14th. Peter, a friend from New York City, had long ago traversed the spiritual path similar to mine. He traveled to India while still in his teens and was later initiated into monastic life by a disciple of Swami Sivananda. For more than 15 years, Peter lived as a sannyasi, teaching yoga and Vedanta in Divine Life Society centers in the US and India. But as he approached midlife, his feelings began to change. The spiritual lifestyle that had nurtured him became confining, like a child's outgrown clothes. Instead of providing a rich medium for personal growth, it now seemed to stifle further progress. As a result, he eventually gave up monastic life and moved to New York, where he enrolled in Columbia University's South Asian Studies program. Peter, then known as Swami Gangadhara, lived for a while in the Sivananda Ashram, the same ashram where Swami Prakash, previously mentioned character and friend of Marg, had previously stayed. Though the two had never met, at the time Peter came to know Swami Brahmananda, an elderly monk who had lived and taught there for decades. The Swami's Vedanta classes inspired Peter so much that he insisted I meet Swami Brahmananda the next time I came to Rishikesh. I was delighted. Therefore, when Swami Prakash asked me to accompany him to the Sivananda ashram, a few of his friends still lived there, and he frequently went to visit them. After lunch, we walked down the narrow lane to the main road where Swami Prakash flagged down an auto rickshaw. The young driver smiled as we climbed in. His white teeth gleamed in contrast with his dark skin and drab clothes. In a flash, we were careening along the road choked with bicycles, three-wheelers, townsfolk, and barefoot pilgrims carrying huge bedrolls on their heads. An occasional truck or bus sent everyone scrambling for safety. Our brief ride strangely reminded me of riding bumper cars in an amusement park. The gate of the Sivananda ashram is about 2 miles up the Badranath road, near the terminus of the Ram Jhula bridge that goes over the Ganges. Its sprawling campus climbs a wooded slope above the road, looking upstream from the Swami Dayananda ashram, where Mark is staying. Its buildings look like huge yellow blocks carelessly scattered over the hillside. Entering the gate, we were greeted not by an ashram resident, but by a pack of monkeys. Swami Prakash told me they often come here to seek handouts of food and had grown quite bold in their pursuit. They knew that women are easier to frighten than men and had learned to pull on women's saris to scare them into dropping their packages. Anyone carrying fruit to offer at the ashram's temple had better be prepared to fend off this mob of simian bandits. We walked past a larger prayer hall where Swami Sivananda used to hold satsang sessions. Swami Prakash led me to the temple to pay our respects at the crypt where the Swami's remains had been interred after his life of service came to an end in 1963. Hindus generally cremate their dead, believing that burning the body sets the soul free to travel to its next life. But for Swamis, cremation is deemed unnecessary. Their enlightened souls have presumably broken free from the cycle of rebirth to merge with God. So instead of being cremated, a Swami's body is usually cast into a body of water or buried. As Swami Prakash explained tongue-in-cheek, so you don't have to waste money on buying firewood to cremate the bodies. Swami Sivananda's crypt had become a place of worship. A shrine to Lord Shiva was installed there, along with a larger-than-life statue of the Swami gazing kindly upon all worshippers. Venerated spiritual leaders in India are often deified by their followers after their passing. Much as sainthood has been conferred upon certain exalted members of the Roman Catholic Church, for example. After prostrating before the shrine, we left the temple and walked up a nearby flight of stairs to the print shop where a friend of Swami Prakash was waiting for us. Swami Nityananda was an intelligent energetic man in his 30s who could easily have been mistaken for a well-groomed college professor if he was not wearing an orange dhoti. He was responsible for overseeing all the publishing activities at the ashram, a sizable job indeed. Swami Nityananda gave us a tour of the print shop, where modern offset presses, ancient linotypes, and various folding, cutting, and binding machines clattered noisily. These machines were operated by a well-trained staff of ashram residents who produced hundreds of publications each year. We were escorted into a special air-conditioned room filled with the latest in desktop publishing equipment. I had never imagined seeing such powerful computers, laser printers, and color scanners in an ashram in the Himalayan foothills. After our tour, Swami Nityananda led us to another building where a cavernous library housed tens of thousands of books in Sanskrit, Hindi, and English. I browsed the well-organized card catalog under the watchful eye of the librarian, an elderly female Swami who carefully observed all that transpired in her domain. Her diminutive orange form seated at a massive desk piled high with books led me to imagine her as a crowned queen seated upon her throne ruling over her majestic library or literary kingdom with wisdom and firmness. Swami Nityananda ushered us out of the library and across the courtyard to his small, cluttered room. We made ourselves comfortable as he assembled a modest feast almond cookies and instant coffee. While we snacked, Swami Prakash asked him about some mutual friends who no longer lived at the ashram. Afterwards, I asked our host to tell me about Swami Sivananda and how this ashram was established. Swami Sivananda was originally trained in South India as a doctor. He practiced medicine in Malaysia for over a decade. When he treated his patients, he saw how they suffered not only physically, but also spiritually. He saw an emptiness in their lives that he could never cure by making them physically well. He gradually became filled with a burning desire to serve people spiritually. Finally, he gave up his medical practice and came to Rishikesh in 1925 to become a sannyasi. He began providing free medical care to all the sadhus living in the area. He founded this ashram in 1936, and before long, people started to come here from all over the world. Swami Sivananda felt that Hindus had fallen away from spiritual ideals, so he taught them to integrate spiritual practice into their daily lives. He wrote hundreds of books on Vedanta and yoga. He also established the Divine Life Society, which runs this ashram and has centers all over the world. Swami Prakash had studied at a Divine Life Society center in his hometown before coming to Rishikesh. I asked Swami Nityananda to describe the classes taught for ashram residents. He replied with a warm smile, "We try our best to follow Swami Sivananda's teachings. Serve, meditate, love. All of us perform karma yoga, which we call selfless service. Some residents work here in the ashram, helping to support the activities of the Divine Life Society. Others do charitable work in the community, like helping at the medical clinic nearby. When a terrible earthquake hit Uttarkashi a few years ago, many ashram residents went there to help. We usually work from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. longer if the job requires, and the remainder of our time is free for prayer, meditation, spiritual reading, and relaxation. How do you spend your days? I asked. Running the publishing department is an extremely big responsibility, so I spend most of my time working. Do you still have much time for meditation and study? Not too much, he replied, but I consider my work to be my main spiritual practice. Working with an attitude of selfless service is a form of prayer. He said the yoga class conducted each morning is attended by only a few residents, but more come for satsang held most evenings. I remarked, I'm surprised there is not more emphasis here on formal spiritual study. Swami Nityananda explained, Swami Sivananda thought that for most people, karma yoga is the best spiritual practice. But, I persisted, some study with a proper teacher is also necessary, is it not? That may be true, he replied, but Swami Sivananda chose not to emphasize it. Some of our residents who want traditional studies go to the Kailash Ashram, which we heard about earlier, yesterday, the day before, each day to attend classes. Swami Prakash then added, residents here are free to study as they like. When I arrived here, I went to the Swami Dayananda Ashram every day for classes. I hoped Swami Nityananda did not interpret my comments as being critical of the Divine Life Society, to which he was so dedicated. To my relief, he didn't appear to take any offense. After an hour of Swami gossip, as he characterized it, Swami Prakash announced that it was time to leave. He had to return to our ashram and prepare for his afternoon chanting class. We thanked Swami Nityananda for his hospitality and bade him farewell. Walking across the courtyard towards the gate, I asked Swami Prakash, why do some teachers like Swami Sivananda de-emphasize scriptural study? He explained, often, scriptures are not taught properly. They are sometimes taught in an extremely theoretical and abstract manner, or they can be made to seem so mysterious and lofty that students have no hope of gaining clarity. When scriptures are taught like that, perhaps meditation and selfless service are better than study. But when the scriptures are properly unfolded with traditional methodology, they can lead students to discover truth, to discover Atma. That is the goal of scriptural study, isn't it? When we reached the gate, I mentioned Peter's suggestion that I meet Swami Brahmananda. Swami Prakash thought I would indeed enjoy the visit and encouraged me to remain behind. He told me to inquire at the ashram's office to arrange a meeting. Then he climbed into a waiting auto rickshaw and sped down the road, trailed by a cloud of black smoke, belched by the rickety three-wheeler. And let's pause our reading there for now. Another great excerpt on Mark's journey through various ashrams in Rishikesh. Previously, he had visited another ashram which focused heavily on traditional scriptural study. But this one is like the mutual opposite, where practically no one is studying scriptures, and instead they engage in karma yoga as their main duty. Goes to show that there is not one method for spiritual learning, but many which lead to the same goal. And thank you for listening with me. And Hello AJ. Hello Annabelle. And thank you to those who sent a gift whilst I read, to allow me to extend my gratitude back to now. Such as Haley Queen for your quintet of finger hearts. Radhe Radhe. And Aiten Yup, thank you for your 11 roses. And a tiny. Yippee! And thank you, Maya, for your flowers. Hariom Tat Sat. Kelsey Ann, you were wondering, didn't I describe Karma Yoga as remaining silent to protect the spirit? Karma Yoga is, action union. It is being one with our actions. It is selfless service. And taking a vow of silence can be one actionable decision that we make in order to become better listeners for others, to quiet down our own mind so that we can be more honest with ourselves and with those in our life. So I think there is an element of Karma Yoga to remaining silent, but it is much more voracious in terms of what constitutes as Karma Yoga. And thank you, Vladimir, for your trio of roses too. Hariom Tat Sat. And Sky Guardian, you were wondering, when am I going to upload yesterday's live? Well, it took a few hours for me to download it, given that it was 25 gigabytes. So I'm going to upload it as soon as I can, but I'm not even sure that I'll be able to. I don't know what YouTube's limits are, nor what the limitations of my own software are that transcribe and chapter it. So we will have to see. Superstar, you were wondering if I believe in karma. I believe that karma becomes obvious with the right definition. Karma is not an English word. It is from Sanskrit. And Sanskrit words are so deep that we often don't even attempt to translate them into English. When we translate karma into English, the closest word we have for it is action. Such is why, for example, the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which in Sanskrit is known as Karma Yoga, in English it's translated to the yoga of action. So asking if you believe in karma is like asking, do you believe in action? Well, of course. Everything we do is karma. But where does the idea about having things come back to you, this kind of feedback loop where there is some system in place where you perform some action and then it eventually leads back to you in the form of a good outcome or a bad outcome? That has to do with our own expectations. It has become very mystified here in the West, but it's a very logical thing. When we perform an action with some expectation, then our expectation serves as the threshold for the outcome. If the outcome fulfills our expectation, then we feel like it's good karma. And when it does not fulfill our expectation, then we feel like it's bad karma. Good action, bad action. However, the real trap is not in having our expectations unfulfilled, it's having expectations entirely. If we detach ourselves from the expectations of our actions, then we are free from the bondage of them, from the binding effects of our karma. So to truly be free of karma therefore means to work for the sake of work, to study for the sake of studying, for helping for the sake of helping, regardless of favorable or unfavorable outcomes. This is all better explained in the Bhagavad Gita, specifically that chapter I mentioned, chapter 3, on Karma Yoga. And Anna, you are wondering as well, if we purify our actions, do we not have to worry about the effect of karma? Purity of intent, indeed, is exactly what breaks the bondage of karma. If your intent is pure, then it doesn't matter what you do. A pure intent means you are not working for self-gratification in the future. You are not working to get any reward, nor to avoid any punishment. Otherwise, it would be an impure intention. And thank you, Katie, for your rose. Hari Om Tat Sat. And thank you, Kristen, for your heart me. Jai Sitaram. And thank you, Living Zombie. I appreciate that gesture. It's very humbling. I'm grateful. Your rose is well received. Radhe Radhe. And thank you, Maria, for your Heart Me and Team bracelet. Jai Sitaram. And thank you, Tanhao Yu, for your Heart Me too. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And Rodet Excess. It's a tough one if you try to pronounce the consonant cluster at the end. Thank you for your trio of roses. Jai Sitaram. And Stephen, I like your question. Shouldn't karma really mean reaction in that case? No? I love that. Yes. Karma can be used both in the negative sense or the positive sense. So I would say that in the negative sense, karma means reaction. But in the positive sense, it means proaction. In other words, being proactive rather than being reactive. Yes, thank you, Gina. Good morning, and thank you, Jared, for your Heart Me Team bracelet. Hands up, and a cheer you up. Ooh, ooh. Radhe, Radhe. And thank you, MJ, for your 10 roses. Hari Om Tat Sat. Jared, you share that you're working nights so you can't stay as it's your bedtime. Very understandable. I worked the night shift one summer at a Staples, so I know what that's like to have to sleep at awkward hours. May your sleep be very restful and rejuvenating. And thank you, Jarrett, for the You're Amazing campfire and a rose. Hari Om Tat Sat. User 227, you share that you always have a feeling like something is missing in your life, and you can't figure out what it is. I like how Alan Watts puts the answer to that question. You don't know what you want because you have everything you need. These things we call experiences of happiness, joy, peace, blissfulness. These are not separate from your very being. They are qualities of yourself. So just being with yourself literally means not going in search of anything separate, abiding in what you are already. And I like that, Kelly James, you had shared, do what is right, good, and helpful, just because that's good, not because we expect anything in return. Well said. And thank you, Lulu, for your trio of disco loves. Orium Tat Sat. And that is right, Sky Guardian. I took a day off on the 17th of April. And Aitenyap, you are wondering, do I have time for relationships, or am I on a self journey? I think we all have time for relationships. However, the decision to focus on oneself is not to take away from the possibility of a relationship. It is so that we can harness our own self-love, and in the possibility of a relationship in the future, then we will be even better lovers because we are abiding in the love that we are as a soul. And thank you, Painted Lady, for your team bracelet. Orium Tat Sat. Kelly Jones, you were wondering, during meditation, should attention be internal or external, or either? It is easier to meditate on the external, like running water, or even a big body of water, an ocean, a lake, a river, even a waterfall. You can find your favorite spot in the forest, a place in nature that you like to meditate, and just soak in the atmosphere. I once sat on a bench in my university campus and stared at a tree until everything around the tree dissolved and there was nothing but the tree, and it just felt like me, the tree, and the void. Bringing your object of meditation more and more inward can be a powerful thing to do. You could also meditate on a candle flame or a roaring fire. Bringing it closer, you can meditate on the expansion and contraction of your breath, meditating on the dynamism of your mind. You could meditate on a feeling such as joy or sadness. You can meditate on that I, the I am. Meditate on a parcel of knowledge. You can meditate on anything. I like to meditate on the uplifting qualities of the universe. This is less of an inner or outward approach because these qualities are both inner and outward. I like to meditate on omnipresence, omniscience, omnibenevolence, omnipotence. I meditate on creativity, maintenance, destructivity. Meditate on causeless mercy, on gratitude, I find these to be very powerful meditations. And thank you, Jared, for the fireworks. Your hearts. 100 and a baker's dozen of roses. And for sending a subscription to Juliana, Love Dorit, someone with an Arabic name that I am unable to pronounce unless they taught me, Amanda Michelle, and one whose name is but a single period. I appreciate your generosity and selfless commitment to sharing something for others. And I look forward to being in the service myself of all of these lovely beings. Radhe, Radhe. Doom Knight, you ask, what is the opposite of meditation? If you're wondering how not to meditate, then while meditating, you're going to be analyzing yourself. Oh, I'm doing this wrong, I need to be meditating. Oh, I'm doing that incorrectly, I should be doing this. What makes a good meditation is that agreeableness for everything to kind of flow. If there was an opposite of meditation, then being aware of that would only take us away from our meditation. So consider everything to be a meditation. And thank you, Stephen, for your team bracelet. Hari Om Tat Sat. I like that, August. It is the opposite. Oh, sorry, no, this was a follow-up from your previous comment. Resistance. I was gonna interpret that as meditation is its own opposite, but I like that as well. Resistance. Whereas acceptance is the very sentiment of meditation. And if you really accept something, then it grows into reverence. And thank you, Bo, for your rose and heart me. Hari Om Tat Sat. Amanda Michelle, you share that you know you have so much potential, you have many talents, but feel exhausted pursuing anything. Why? What we pursue is going to be tiring. Even something we're good at requires us to expend energy. Of course, the more we are good at something, the more efficient we are with it. However, if we are feeling so exhausted by our efforts, perhaps it's a great time to rest. Learning how to rest effectively, now that, there is so much potential. And what a talent it is to be able to rejuvenate. If you feel like that energy isn't there yet, then allow yourself to be patient until it comes. And when it does come, know that that energy is meant to be expended. So while pursuing your potential, you will naturally feel like there is some resistance. That resistance shows that you are growing, you are pushing boundaries. And after a hard day's work, you will feel accomplished in your exhaustion. And thank you, Miranda, for your rose, heart me and team bracelet. Orium Tat Sat. And you share that you do feel it will come. Your mom just constantly pressures you, and that's frustrating. I am sure that she only wants the best for you, but is missing more effective ways to help you reach your goals. We don't have to accept that pressure and put expectations on ourselves. If you know that it's coming, then there is no pressure. Sky Guardian, you ask, is Roar of the Ganges my new favorite book? My favorite book is indeed the one I'm currently reading. And thank you, Miranda, for your 11 roses a minute ago. Radhe Radhe. Duk Nguyen, if I have pronounced that right, you share that you have jumped in to share your meditation experience. You are very welcome to share it. Yes, please do. And thank you, Dob Darker, for your heart me. Hariom Tat Sat. Thank you, Iris Live, for your pair of roses as well. Jai Sita Rama. Moon, you share that it hurts to be unseen and unheard. And you know, I love that observation, because being seen and heard is a blessing for other people, because your soul is so beautiful that it deserves to be witnessed. And by expressing yourself, you become a blessing for other people. And if they're not listening or seeing you, then that's their loss, not yours. Thank you, Liz, for your pair of tiny dinies. Yippee! That's okay, Sky Guardian. I set up a chant for us. I was just curious if you had one. Thank you, Iris, for your flowers as well. Radhe Radhe. And thank you, Maya, for your trio of roses, your Gigi and ice cream cone. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Duk Nguyen, you share that you do 7 chakras for the first 100 days. You don't even feel nothing happens. Then you keep for a week after, and you feel the energy in the body is so powerful. Wow. That's wonderful. Isn't it amazing how the body is capable of generating such spiritual experiences? That this body has a spiritual body pervading it. And you have felt it for yourself. Very happy to hear that. Sometimes it's like that, where you spend 100 days making no progress, and then you give just one more week, and then suddenly all that progress makes its appearance. Thank you, Liz, for your little crown and heart me. Radhe, Radhe. And thank you, Miranda, for your rose. Jai Sita Rama. User 227, you ask, is there anything that annoys me and makes my blood boil? Oh yes, loads of things. But I'm learning to see them as opportunities for patience. For example, I used to become so upset with those unskippable ads on YouTube. I'd think, my God, what torture is this? All I want to do is listen to this lecture, and now I have to take a pause. Then I started to enjoy them, because I could take 5 seconds to breathe again, recollect on what we have been talking about so far, and now I see it as an opportunity to not have expectations that this moment is always going to go the way it should go. So it's like a little gift. The universe is like, here you go. Here's 5, 10, 15, 30 seconds to remember that you have learned so much so far in this video, and that you are so excited to learn what comes next. And that you have the patience to understand. Thank you, Love Dorit, for your fire. Hari Om Tat Sat. And Maya, thank you for your heart me. Jai Sita Rama. Anna, you ask, Yam, is this all about Dharma? It's a word that I often don't use, because it's a particularly tricky word to translate, especially for our Western ears. In the first English to Sanskrit dictionaries, they translated it as faith. But it wasn't quite accurate. They revised it to righteousness. And still to this day, you'll find various definitions for what exactly this word is supposed to invoke. Duty, welfare, we might feel like Dharma is what we're supposed to do, but our Dharma is really what we are allowed to do that brings out our highest potential. And why wouldn't we pursue that and give meaning to that source? Consider it like this: God simply is. God is waiting for you to give him meaning, because by himself he doesn't have any. He has made creation for us to figure him out, because without us there is no meaning. So it's our duty to create that meaning, to unfold it, discover it, and be the witness to beauty through our austerities our sacrifices. That's our Dharma. Desi, you share that you need support with a toxic employee that you have to fire. You feel so conflicted. It may feel like you are punishing them. However, you have a responsibility to your co-workers to ensure a safe, respectful environment. And you have a responsibility to your employee that you are to let go of. To show them where boundaries are in the workplace. Boundaries are discovered by the consequences of crossing them. Fire doesn't tell you it's hot and going to burn you before you touch it. It's not like we're reaching our hand into the fire and then something stops you and the fire says, "Hey, just letting you know, if you put your hand a little closer, it's gonna burn." We discover that by the consequence of crossing the fire's boundary. So consequences are not punishment. They are the discovery process for where boundaries are. Good afternoon, divinely chosen. And thank you, Auntie, for your pair of roses, pair of ice cream cones, and a TikTok a minute ago. Hari Om Tat Sat. And thank you, Ursula, for your heart, me, and rose. Jai Sitaram. And thank you, Liv, for your perfume as well. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Uncanny Valley, you ask, how do I become? Now, if that isn't the question of all questions which provoked existence into being, I wonder if I can find in the Vedas that creation story from the Rig Veda, because it's wonderful. There it is. From the Nasadya Sukta, from the 10th canto of the Rig Veda, chapter 129. In the beginning, the non-existent was not then, nor was the existent. The earth was not, nor the firmament, nor that which is beyond. When there was nothing then, what could cover what? And where and in whose care did the waters and the bottomless deep then exist? There was no death nor immortality then. There was no sign of night nor of day. That one breathed without extraneous breath, with his own nature. Other than him, there was nothing beyond. In the beginning there was darkness, intensified darkness, indistinguishable darkness, all this visible world was reduced to its primordial nature. This primordial world, which was enveloped by the all-pervading power of One, before whom the world of matter is a trifle, became one through the force of his intense activity and spiritual fervor. In the beginning, the divine will arose. This was the first seed of the mind of the Creator. Those who can see beyond by putting their mind and heart together found the binding link of the existent in the non-existent existing in the existent. The rays of the divine will spread across the whole world. They spread up below and above, and the result was that small and big organisms bearing seeds were born. As the existence of Earth was dependent on the divine will of the Creator, the position of matter was lower than the spirit which acted with the divine will. Who truly knows, and who can declare whence it cometh, and whither it vanisheth? The divine people who know were born much after creation came into being. Who then knows whence it has come about, whence this as creation has come? Who holds or does not hold? He who is its surveyor in the highest heaven, he alone knoweth, and yet doth he know. I love that last line. And yet doth he know. Does even God know from where he has come from? How does one become? Now that is the mystery of eternity. Dinabu or Dinahu? You ask, what is your take on the chicken or egg question? There are many ways we can interpret this question, and it's a lovely, lovely, lovely question, isn't it? Now, of course, there have been eggs before chickens have existed. Dinosaur eggs, for example. But what we really mean is the chicken egg. And it's a good question, because all chickens must have come from a chicken egg, and all chicken eggs must have been laid by a chicken. Now, of course, the logical answer is that life is a continuous evolution. To posit where the chicken differs from the organism that it has evolved from is an arbitrary line we draw. Life is a lot more fluid, constantly changing. As time grew, the organism became more chicken-like. And as we go back in time, it becomes less chicken-like. So the binary is more like a spectrum, a continuum of change. So too we have questions like, how many grains of sand do we add together until it becomes a pile? Well, after 1,000,000 grains of sand, you could say it's a pile. But a few grains of sand is hardly a pile. So at what point did it become a pile? There's the ship of Theseus, where a ship named Theseus goes out on its maiden voyage, and during its long exhibition, all of its parts get replaced and all of its crew. By the time it returns, It is still called the ship of Theseus, but is it really the same ship? If so, then what part of its essence has continued when everything physical has been replaced? If not, at what point did it stop being the ship of Theseus? Philosophy is littered with all these questions, and to me, the logical conclusion of all of these inquiries is not to make some answer known to be true and another untrue, but to accept that logic itself is limited by the binary of this and that, yes and no, true and false. Life is more probabilistic and fluid. It changes not from one state suddenly to another. Everything is in gradual change. Constant flux. A funny oxymoron, isn't it? Thank you, Des, for your rose a few moments ago. And Miracle Worker for your rose. Radhe, Radhe. And thank you, Mina, for your tiny. Yippee! And Steffi, thank you for your heart me as well. Jai Sitaram. User 227, you ask, how does one overcome the fear of death? The fear of death is really an expression of life. When we say, I'm afraid to die, what we mean is, I want to live. If someone's put in a position where they could die, they could just as equally say, I want to live, in the same context, whereas someone else would say, I don't want to die. It's just reframing the fear in terms of a positive. Well, when we reframe it like that, then we can now have a practical, actionable perspective. Well, if we want to live, then live. If fear is taking you away from living your life fully, and that fear just means you want to live fully, then live as fully as you can. Like the wise man who once said, I do not fear my life coming to an end. I fear it not having a beginning. When you decide to live, then your life truly begins. And thank you, Steffi, for your heart meet and trio of finger hearts a minute ago. Radhe, Radhe. And Ragnhildur, thank you for your rose. Jai Sitaram. And thank you, Ursula, for your cheer you up. Hari Om Tat Sat. And Stephen, thank you for your rose as well. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And thank you, Love Dorit, for your balloons and friendship necklace. Luisa, you are wondering if I believe in reincarnation. I believe that it is a very natural assumption. When I was younger, I didn't know what to believe, because some people say that after death there's nothing. Some people say that after death there's a possibility of eternal peace or eternal suffering. And some people say that after death you just come back here. And I thought, this is quite the choice to make, because depending on what I believe, it really changes how I live my life, doesn't it? But then I started to realize that there weren't three choices, that they are all the same afterlife from different perspectives. See, if reincarnation is the true solution, then now we get where the eternity comes from, of the eternal peace or eternal suffering. Whether you make your future lives to be a heaven or a hell, well, that very much depends on how we live this life. And if that nothingness is true, then that nothingness is the very place from which this life originated from. And so we only return to the same state before our very birth. That sounds a lot like a cycle. So from some perspective, you can find an overlap between all of these ideas. And so I think the ones who believe in nothing are right. The ones who believe in reincarnation are right. And the ones who believe in an eternal peace or eternal suffering are also right, because they're all just describing different parts of the same system. And thank you, Liv, for your heart as well. Radhe, Radhe. I like that sentence, Bella. Something is nothing, and nothing is something. Ator, goddess of women, you ask. Do I remember who I was in my past life? Geez, I hardly remember who I was yesterday. No, I'm quite ignorant of any life outside this one. But I do like what I heard Yogi Raj Sadgurunath Sinanath say this morning. That there's no such things as having multiple lives. You have one, but multiple bodies. It's one life. Your past life is the same life. Your afterlife is the same life. We only talk about before and after just in terms of our body. Luna, you are wondering, do I believe that we can quantum jump into a new reality for many years and then come back here? It is said in very ancient scriptures that one soul takes 1,000,000 cycles of our solar system in order to awaken. But through spiritual practice, we can accelerate that. We can simulate an entire year of evolution through meditation. That is how Kriya Yoga, for example, is described. That as we take our energy up the spine and down it, then we simulate a full year's worth of emotional maturity, spiritual growth, so in meditation, we may come out of it many years older, spiritually speaking. We have so much information, and information is just another word for energy. All energy is information. All information is energy. It from bit, as the physicists call that. To sit with your own energy means to sift through it. What is the purpose of sifting through it? The same reason scientists collect data, and through data analysis they pick up on patterns. From those patterns they make hypotheses. From those hypotheses they create theories. And then from those theories they test them and repeat and come to greater understanding. Likewise with our own experience, all we have to do to process that data is sit with it, breathe with it, let it flow, and you come out of that meditation that much more wiser, older. Sky Guardian. Is it the Vachana Amrut time? Alright, as you wish, my friend. Let us read from another section of this book you have gifted us, which is kind of like the Bible for those who worship Swami Narayan, who was an avatar of Krishna in the 1800s. And this is a collection of about 300 discourses with that spiritual master. Here we are reading Gadada 1:8. Engaging the Indriyas in the service of God and His saint. On Maghshar Sudhi 11, Samvat 1876, or the 27th of November 1819 in our calendar, Shriji Maharaj, an honorific title for Swami Narayan, was sitting in Dada Kachar's darbar in Gadada. He was dressed entirely in white clothes. At that time, an assembly of sadhus, as well as devotees from various places, had gathered before him. Thereupon, Shriji Maharaj said, "If the vrittis of the Indrayas are engaged in the service of Sri Krishna Bhagavan and his bhakta, devotees, then the antahkaran is purified, and the sins that have been attached to the jiva, the individual, since time immemorial, are destroyed. On the other hand, if the vrittis of the indriyas are directed towards the feminine and other vishais, then one's antahkaran becomes polluted and one falls from the path of liberation. Ah, I see. Not towards the feminine necessarily, but towards using the feminine for their own sense gratification. Therefore, one should indulge in the vishais only as prescribed in the scriptures. But one should never indulge in them by transgressing the regulations that are described in the scriptures. Also, one should keep association with the sant, the saint, and should shun bad company, all those bad influences. In this manner, when a person shuns bad company and maintains association with the divine personalities, the sense of I-ness that one harbors towards their body and the sense of my-ness that one harbors towards their bodily relations are eradicated. One also develops profound love for God and vairagya towards everything except God. Dispassion. So, we shall direct our energies towards the divine without using that energy towards our own sensual gratification. And one way to do this is to maintain satsang, good company, rather than kusang, bad company. Let us pause our reading there. And thank you, love Dorit, for your heartbeat. Radhe, Radhe. Stay equally yoked and like-minded. One bad egg spoils the bunch. I very much like that. B31 love. The Book of Life. B1 love. That's what your name means. Now I get it. Sky Guardian, you ask, how many hours was I live yesterday? I think about 10 hours. Anna, you share that the book is like a pocket version of the Gita. I agree. It's a good comparison. Gregor, you agree. I was on so long yesterday. What was up with that? I thought it'd be funny. Everyone's expecting it to end, and it just never ended. It's a good joke. And White Billy, you share, but without bad, how do you know good? Indeed. Without all these limiting experiences, how can we know what is unlimited? Billy, you ask, have my parents ever watched these lives or videos of the lives? Yes. Many of my family members watch them. My mother, my father, sometimes my sister, my uncle, and my grandmother. Hello. Very rarely they appear in chat. Sometimes you might not even know you are talking to one of my family members. But I don't point them out for the sake of their own privacy. Sky Guardian, you share that we should make a world record 24-hour satsang. Is that a world record? I think Ved Vyas talked for months to Ganesh, revealing the Mahabharata. Now that was a long satsang. Maybe on TikTok it would be. Maybe on TikTok. Yes, I think we could do that. Not today. Today I have to measure my waist for my grandma, who said, "You are measuring your waist so I can buy you new pants and shorts, because you are growing and you have outgrown all the pants that you have been given by me." She feels very needed when she is buying me clothes, so I'm very grateful. I will be ending our live at some point so I can do that for her. And thank you, Liv, for your dozen roses. Hari Om Tat Sat. Gami, you ask, do we actually have free will? And can we truly, free willy, choose it? Sorry. Free Willy, that's a good movie, isn't it? Free will is a subtle thing. Our true freedom is in the power of association. Even if life were like Plato's cave, where we are merely watching the shadows on the wall, there still is a freedom to witness. And that freedom comes in which characters we choose to identify with. And which characters we choose to identify with, that affects what feelings we have towards the experience. Those feelings then generate their own experiences. And from those experiences we learn new things. And from those new things that we learn, we make decisions based on that. And the decisions we make shape our mind to be what it is today. And from our mind, our body has a selection of thoughts to engage in. And so we make a difference in the world that way. But it all starts in the power of association. Which thoughts, feelings, characters, places we choose to identify with. That is why the most important thing one can do in their spiritual journey is associate with positive people, more so than the negative people, through that satsang rather than kusang. We gradually gain leverage over this whole system. But when we're surrounded by kusang, when we are associating with negative thoughts, feelings, places, and people, then how can we have the feelings necessary to have positive experiences? How can we make the right choices based on our limiting experiences? How can we have a positive mind? And how can we make a difference in the world without that satsang, true company we keep with ourselves. Now, even if you're in a particularly nasty household, particularly terrible school, or depressing part of the world, now with the internet, which I know you all have because otherwise you wouldn't be here, we're able to associate with positive people, places, and things from afar. And beyond time as well. Even associating with positive characters in your favorite book, TV show, or movie can take you far and wide. Thank you, Marcus, for your rose. Radhe, Radhe. Sky Guardian, you're wondering, how many times did I read yesterday? So you know where to look. I just read at the beginning and the end as always, but I read from the Pema Chodron 2 times, and from the Vachana Amrut 1 time. Thank you, Liv, for your confetti also. Ariom Tat Sat. Starfire, you ask, how to deal with someone who is jealous of you? Jealousy is very close to being happy for someone, isn't it? Because we recognize that they are being made happy by something. And if we were them, then we would be made happy by that. So, if one can begin to be a little bit more vicarious and feel happiness through them, then we can almost be happy for them. We are very close because we already recognize that there is a conscious experience happening there. And if my conscious experience included their experience, then I would be made happy. So instead of becoming them, let them become you. Feel that beingness in you, in them also. Now here's a fact for you all. Your tongue already knows what everything tastes like. Look at your ceiling. What texture would it have? You already know what it would feel like for your tongue to glide across it. How about your doorknob? What texture would it have? You can imagine it. How about this sock covering my microphone? I am sure you would know what it would feel like also. That means that you already have the capacity to experience something that you have not. So let others be your own experience of happiness. When other people are happy, feel that happiness as if it were your own. Thank you, MJ, for your quintet of roses. Radhe, Radhe. Gregor, you share that one time, while very blissed out, you reached to your friend's fridge, and when you touched the door, you shivered and tasted the sour. That's awesome. And thank you, Ginseng, for your dozen roses. Hariom Tat Sat. Uncle Tony, you ask, what about being unhappy? Good question. You can feel everyone's happiness as if it were your own, but not everyone's unhappiness. Now, why is this? It's very philosophical. The reason you can feel other people's happiness as if it were your own is because happiness is the nature of one's true self, their higher self. And the higher self in you is the very same higher self in them. So to feel their happiness is to feel your own happiness. But unhappiness arises from a limitation in their own personal experience. That is not something you can personally experience because it is their lower self which causes the unhappiness. And your lower self is separate from their lower self. So whereas we can experience the qualities of their higher self, such as happiness, we can block out the experience of their lower self, such as unhappiness. And well said, Galactic Gal Girl. You share that unhappiness is a disconnect to the higher self. Beautiful. Yes, thank you, Ginseng, for your dozen roses a minute ago. And Stephen, for your 9 + 8 roses. Radhe, Radhe. And thank you, Laurie, for your disco love. And Tiny Tiny. Yippee! And Leslie, thank you for your 30 roses. Arion Tat Sat. Felix, you're wondering, what about empathetic people that can pick up and embody others' energies outside of their own? That's something which is an asset and a skill to be able to hold without judgment. All spiritual powers, known as siddhis in Sanskrit, arise through some austerity, meaning that they had to go through some challenge in order to acquire it. Empathy is a power gained through experiencing the negative emotions of others, often in childhood. For example, one time my father came home and he was angry because he had been let go from his job at work. And seeing the anger in his eyes, I went to my room because I know that it would be dangerous for me to express myself when it might not be received fully. So there is a practical use in children for being perceptive to their parents' emotions or their other guardians to protect their own self from them. In later life, this can lead to understanding the emotions of everyone, just intuitively, instantly. But we can still have an unhealed part of our childhood that was traumatized because it means that something's wrong. But when we become emotionally mature, it's not wrong at all for people to have negative feelings. You're allowed to feel that without feeling like it's personal. People can be sad around you, and there's nothing wrong with that. Because it's not your job to solve other people's sadness, other people's anger. It's not a reflection on you and your inability to be whole. Sadness, anger, frustration, guilt, sorrow, resentment, they can all be powerful experiences that those people are going through for their own transformation. For us to reject their feelings would be to not acknowledge the beauty in them. So we have to have trust that what other people are going through is for the benefit of their own self, and it is not our job to change any aspect of their feelings, because we are still whole even when surrounded by negativity. Thank you, Lori, for your disco love, and Tiny Tiny. Yippee! And thank you, Isabella, for your trio of roses. Radhe, Radhe. And thank you. Thank you, Momitka, for your trio of roses, and Galactical Girl for your 20. Zana, you ask, if you honestly regret something, does that balance out the karma? No. Regret is the karma itself. You see, karma is not something that happens due to what quality your action had on others. Karma means the intention of the action with respect for expectation of outcome. What does that mean? It means that when we perform an action, we have expectations for how that action is going to blossom. It can blossom into a favorable outcome, an unfavorable outcome, or a neutral outcome. We think that an unfavorable outcome is bad karma. A favorable outcome is good karma, and a neutral outcome is no karma. But the real karma is our expectation. Without the expectation, then there is no such thing as a favorable or unfavorable outcome. There just is the outcome. We have to understand ourselves as not the creator of the outcome. The outcome is created by God. We only create the action itself. And sometimes God links good effort to a good outcome, sometimes bad effort to a bad outcome. But sometimes the outcome and the action are independent. And if we confuse our sense of self as the creator of the outcome, then we get confused. And we become dissatisfied with our own abilities. And so we regret our action. And the regret is the karma that binds us itself. So the true balancing out of the karma in your case is forgiveness to yourself. If you wish to be free of the karma of your action, then you must forgive yourself. Not hold yourself accountable for something that was out of your control. What is in our control is our ability. And in each moment we are only making our choices based on our experiences. If we hold ourselves to the pressure that we should have known better, then we fail to realize that we couldn't have. What matters is not what we did in the past, but how we adapt to the present. And the present moment deserves your own forgiveness, so that you can attend to it from a new platform of stability. Exactly, Zan Lennox. You can't fault yourself for what you didn't know. And thank you, Craig O'Connor, for your heart meet. Hari Om Tat Sat. And thank you, Iris Live, for your pair of roses. Jai Sitaram. Melanie, you share that you enjoy listening to my knowledge. Believe me, it's not mine. And you are curious if your parents taught me, or am I self-taught? When we use the English word or, we could use it in two ways. There's something called the inclusive or and the exclusive or. Technically, there is a word for the exclusive or. It's XOR. But we normally mean the exclusive or when we just say or. But logically speaking, or means one or the other or both. For example, a wife once asked her logical husband, "Did you pick up the kids from school or did you go to the bar?" And the husband says, "Yes." Because if you have done either of those things, then the answer is yes. Did I learn from my parents, or am I self-taught? Yes. And in fact, in this case, I am both. I have learned so much from my parents, and my parents know that there's so much outside their experience that I am open to as well. And thank you, Iris Live, for your hanging lights. Hari Om Tat Sat. And Josie Santos, you are wondering, what frequency is currently playing, as it's very soothing? It is a frequency for the throat chakra. And I love that. Be one love. You share that praying for strength only brings trials and tribulations. Isn't it funny? You pray for strength, and then God giveth trials and tribulations. You say, "This isn't what I wanted." God says, "No, but it's what you needed. This is the way to become stronger. I am giving you this opportunity for strength." You pray to become wiser, so God gives you all these problems. You say, "This isn't what I wanted." God said, "Well, it's what you needed. These problems are for you to solve so you can exercise your wisdom and become smarter this way." I am giving you the opportunity to become wiser. This is how you get wiser. It's not a magic trick that God snaps his fingers and whoo, suddenly you are stronger. Suddenly you are wiser. It has to be gained, like all things in the universe. It is a process. Hope Lion, you ask, do things really happen in the relevant of the spirit before it happened on earth? What we mean by the spirit is the inner world, and what we mean by the world or earth is the outer world. When we look around us and we see all of the events that have shaped us, from what school we have decided to go to, from the architect building the school to begin with, to the design that they led with a piece of paper and a pencil to their decision to become an architect. All of the things that happen in the world first happen in the inner world. Everything that was around us happened first as a thought. Like the lamp in your room. That is the manifestation of your prior thought, I need more light in the room. From that thought you were compelled into action, and from the action brought forth the lamp. I like that, Cassie. As above, so below, and as within, so without. Above is really just another word we use to describe the spirit. Above, within, it's really just attempts at a new dimension. Like if you were trying to speak to a two-dimensional being, they only lived on the surface of something, and they heard you somehow, and they asked, "Where are you?" You'd say, "Well, I'm above you." And then they look up, but their up is different from your up. Their up is just your forwards, just more towards the north of the plane. So they're looking up. "I don't see you." "No, I'm a different kind of up. I'm above your above. I'm more like over your body. Like I can see inside you. In some sense, I am within you, or without you." Well, how do I look for that? They can't. So too, we describe God as above or within, but it's much like trying to talk to that two-dimensional creature. It's a dimension that we cannot perceive. And thank you, Sammy, for your rose. Hari Om Tat Sat. And thank you, Evelyn. So many ways to pronounce your name. Thank you for your paper crane. Hari Om Tat Sat. Gregor, you're wondering, is the frequency I'm playing the 528 Hz frequency? I'm not confident. Well, there are many frequencies playing. But I'm sure that the root is probably that, if that is for the throat chakra. MJ, you ask, how does someone with shame open their throat chakra? By taking ownership. If someone calls you out on something, what they're trying to do is make you feel ashamed for being that. But own up to it. Take them by surprise. Yeah. What if I am that which you are so afraid of? Then what will they do? How can they cause you to feel shameful when you are not ashamed? Everything I have gone through has shaped me to be a better person, especially the mistakes I've made. And so I'm only grateful to have experienced that which has shaped me to the person I am today. and I look forward to the person I will become tomorrow. And thank you, Hope Lion, for your pair of roses. Hari Om Tat Sat. And I'm grateful, UK Star, that you were able to know that the person who was pretending to be me was not me. And thank you, Hope Lion, for your trio of roses. Radhe, Radhe. I'm glad you make use of the stickers, Marcy. And thank you, Alexandrina, for your rose. Hari Om Tat Sat. I like the fullness of your name, Alexandrina. Many people are named just Alexandra. Some people are just Alexa. Some people are just Alex. Some people are just Al. But you are so full in your name, Alexandrina. That's great. And well said, Chris Owens. I only learn from making mistakes, and I've made a lot of them in my life. Sounds like you have learned a lot then. And thank you, VK Francis, for your team bracelet. Hari Om Tat Sat. Be one love. You share that your name is Alicia, and it means truth, chosen one, or planned one. I love that. Why don't we explore that? Truth is the chosen one, the planned one. Truth is that which comes together, that which orders amidst the chaos of contradiction. Truth is choice. To be free with the power of will. I like your name, Alicia. And thank you, Nicole, for your heart me. Radhe, Radhe. And thank you for the rose as well. Jai Sita Rama. And Gina, thank you for your rose. Hari Om Tat Sat. Evelyn, you share that your name comes from Eve, the life-giving. They say, how wonderful is that? The Divine Mother. And thank you, Alexandrina, for a heart me as well. And be one love, you share that you change it to Elijah. I love that as well. Besto, you're wondering, where does my name, Yam, come from? It is 3/4 of my given name. You just have to put one letter prepended, and it becomes my full name. What letter could that be? Zayam? Niam? Bayam, Kiam. Yes, it is L, user 227. When I stopped taking L's, I became Yam. And thank you, Sav, for your quintet of roses. Radhe, Radhe. Namaste, Globy Champion. Marcus, you ask, do I believe that anyone can hold the power of the Christos, one word to describe many things? I believe there was one man who was able to behold that power, and they crucified him. Now, in some sense, we all have that potential, but not all of us are able to realize it. At least, we all realize it to different extents, based on our own understanding and the graces we have received. Although no one can take the place of Jesus, we all can become Christ-like. There are many things that He can do that we cannot do. But there are many things that He did so that we do. Like being compassionate, patient, and kind. Although it might be hard to believe sometimes, that wasn't one of His miracles. That's something that we also have the capacity to do. And Sav, you're wondering, do I believe we have a sense of healing hands, such as Jesus? You feel as though this is experienced a lot. I actually had a dream a few years ago where I healed Jesus. And I'll explain it. There was a narrator in the dream, and there was this hill in the background, and I was watching this time lapse of humanity, and the village in front of the hill was changing, and then it would dissipate, and then people would build up a settlement again and again. And the narrator said that every age the Messiah comes over that hill riding on his horse. And so I saw various different incarnations of God. One was rather Asian looking, East Asian. Another was more dark skinned, and another was the form of Jesus. And when that form came, time slowed, and he came to me and he fell on the ground, and the narration stopped, and I got on my knees and I held my hands over him. I'm not sure exactly what compelled me to do this, but I felt as though I was to give him my energy. And so I did. And then he got up and said, "Thank you, my son, in return for this generosity you have given me." And then he reached into my mind and he pulled out something. And at that point the dream looked like a video game. Like my mind was an inventory screen, and there was all the thoughts I had as items in my inventory. And the cursor of the screen came over and clicked on one thing, and the thing that was named as dark sense of humor, he pulled out. And he said, "You will never find dark things funny again, my son." And then I woke up. And I found that hilarious, because I was always cracking jokes, particularly dark ones. It was common for me to recite perhaps racist jokes or sexist ones amongst my peers, but after that dream I stopped doing it. I didn't find them as funny as I did. Now, Jesus did heal a lot of people in his life, but he never took ownership of the healing. Every time a healing occurred, and the one who was healed went to thank them, he would say, "Don't thank me, my son, my child. Go to the temple and thank the Father." Now, it's not that he was just practicing humility. There is a significance of this. When we are doing the healing, if we feel like we are the ones who are healing, then we take ownership for their own ability to grow, to learn. But that potential was already inside of them, given to them by the Source. So in some way they have to thank their own inner self, the higher self that Jesus called the Father. So although we do have the capacity to be there for someone who is healing, it's important not to consider ourselves as the healer. The healing is done within them. We are merely unfolding the potential that already exists. And thank you for your trio of team bracelets, BK Francis. Radhe, oh Radhe. Cassie, you share that your Gemini brain is an absolute paradise right now and is also racing. I am happy that you have found some peace even amidst the chaos. Thank you, this is my show, for your heart meet. Hariom Tat Sat. Tansuela, you share that my subconscious is very astute and humorous too. My dreams often lead me to waking up laughing. When I was really young and I used to still sleep with my parents, I remember I woke up my father by laughing, and he just had to know what was so funny in my dream. And I still remember this dream to this day. It took place in Bikini Bottom. I watched a lot of SpongeBob as a kid, played a lot of SpongeBob video games, and we were on the roof of the Krusty Krab. And SpongeBob was there, and Patrick was there. And Patrick was holding a keychain. And the keychain had a little rocket ship on it. And he was pretending to move the rocket ship about. He was making the sound effects too. And then the engine started sputtering. Started failing. And then Patrick started swearing. He was saying, "Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap." But it wasn't crap, it was the S word. And I started laughing because I never expected Patrick to start swearing. And I told my dad this when I woke up. And he laughed too. And thank you, Roxanne, for your rose. Jai Sitaram. Evelyn, you ask, in my dream, do I know that I am dreaming? When you are fully awake and you are no longer dreaming, haven't you noticed? If you've ever tried to lucid dream, inside your dream, the moment you recognize that you're dreaming, you wake up. So you can never be fully lucid in your dream. Now you can be about half lucid. Part of you recognizes it's a dream, but part of you still accepts it as reality, so you keep going with it. And that does seem to be my usual dream state, where part of me knows that it's a dream, but a part of me doesn't care so much to wake myself up from it. And thank you, Roxanne, for your rose. Radhe, Radhe. I like to fly a lot when I do realize, partially, that I'm dreaming. Or at least I realize that I have the ability to do so here. And I always try to make the people in my dream freaked out by my dream powers, but they never seem to care. I'll be floating past some pedestrian. Yeah, look, I'm flying. And they don't want anything to do with me. And I'm so disappointed that I can't seem to provoke the dream people. Thank you, Laurie, for your 14 roses. Hari Om Tat Sat. Thank you, Gina. Always happy to have you here. And Haley Queen, thank you for your quartet of tiny dinies. Yippee! I love that sentence you have typed, Jose. When we wake up, it's God's turn to play the dream. I like that. The Simpsons video game, at the end of the game, you have to do a dance contest for God. It's one of the most incredible video games that has ever been made. And the final battle in the game is to do a dance contest for God. And it is one of the hardest things I've ever done while playing a video game. I tried for days and days and days, and I could never beat God in the dance contest. Now eventually, I was able to. And at the end of the game, it's revealed that the whole time, actually, the little kid who always eats batteries and says, "Haha, I'm in danger," from that meme. He was you the whole time playing the video game. As it zooms out from the TV and then you see the little kid, he's playing you playing the game. And then it zooms out once more and it's God playing the kid, playing you playing the video game. Ralph, that's his name, yeah. And when that happened, you know, as a little kid, I was like, whoa, what a concept. That I was being played by Ralph, and Ralph was being played by God. Wayland Daly, you are wondering, why do I think Eastern philosophy is so much more profound than Western philosophy and religion. I don't think that's necessarily true. And yeah, I like that, Gregor. Fourth wall broke, and the fifth wall was broke. Infinite walls. Yeah. Now once you break the fifth wall, it's all over. Naturally, I have gravitated towards Eastern philosophy, but the very same ideas in Western philosophy are there. One truth told in many ways. And so the profundity of that truth lying dormant in the heart of Western philosophy is still just as profound. I think one reason the Eastern philosophers seem to take more attention from us as spiritual seekers is because that they are an ancient tradition that is unbroken, whereas Western civilization has risen and fallen many times. Our philosophy has had to be restarted over and over again. It's very much broken up by various events. But in the region of Bharat, which includes part of the Middle East, India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Tibet, but most importantly the Himalayas, there has been an unbroken chain of spiritual lineages that stretch back long before Western civilization. And so because of that, the corpus of spiritual texts concerning philosophical, metaphysical, and scientific matters is just a little more broad in that regard due to the history in that region. The West is sometimes referred to as the New World. It is new in some sense. The Old World refers to the East. And that's a good observation as well, Cody Patterson. Also, Eastern culture looks inward, down. Western culture looks outward and up. I like that. And Brandon Rogers, you were wondering how you can rid yourself of an addiction through spirit. In AA, for example, in Alcoholics Anonymous, I have heard that they often leave an empty seat, and it's supposed to signify the higher power. And whoever you imagine sitting there, whether it's Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, or even if it's some guy named Bob, it doesn't matter. But there is some part of AA which crucially exemplifies this point, that in order to transcend lower habits, we have to bring on higher ones. So it is less about getting rid of the bad as it is bringing on the good. Because the mind hardly works well just in terms of negative. For example, you tell someone, stop smoking. Well, what are they to do instead of smoking? That makes more sense than just telling them what not to do. We have to tell them what to do. So you could tell them to chew gum. You could tell them to go for a run, to engage yourself in some meaningful activity that distracts your mind. What we ultimately have to do is wait out the cravings. And desires don't last forever. It's not like you're going to have to feel that craving now for the rest of your life, which can throw a lot of people off from trying to befriend their addictions, because they know what it feels like to go through withdrawal, and they're worried that that feeling is just something they're going to have to be brave about and hold for the rest of your life. But it's not true. It may get worse momentarily, but quicker than later. These desires withdraw themselves from you. So what matters is what you do with yourself to occupy your mind during the presence of these cravings, withdrawal symptoms, and desires. And that is why people recommend a spiritual approach, that we lift our mind to sublime heights through prayer, meditation, through rendering selfless service to the divinity within everyone. We consider the addiction being conquered not by our own will, but by the will of the universe. Because it can take infinite strength, so it seems sometimes, in order to conquer them. So don't believe that you're alone in the journey. There is a higher guidance which is helping you, and the more faith you put in that, the easier it will be. And thank you, the happiest hippie, for your heart me a moment ago. Radhe Radhe. And Blodrina, thank you for your heart me. Hari Om Tat Sat. And thank you, Cody Patterson, for your galaxy. Very humbling token of appreciation. Jai Sita Rama. Thank you. Tim Martin, you share that was the most clear message you've ever had about conquering addiction. Transcend lower, higher. It takes one to know one. I have had my share of addictions, although I'm very grateful that mine were not of anything too serious. And I was pretty young. The younger you are, the easier it is. But I certainly know what it feels like to go through withdrawal. And thank you, Felicitas, for your rose. Hari Om Tat Sat. Now, how do I pronounce your lovely name? Lena? Lenia Elvira. That's my guess. You are wondering, what are we doing? You really want to know? Well, this is a Sangha. S-A-N-G-H-A. It means a gathering of sorts, with the intention of sharing spiritual knowledge. And I don't claim to have any myself, but I can only relate in your experiences, and in any way I can uplift what merits you already have. Consider that my opportunity. Thank you, waste of time, for your hand hearts and heart me. And Vera May, thank you for your heart me too. Let us read another verse from the Pocket Pema Chodron. This is a little book that was written in part by Pema Chodron, a Buddhist nun, but it was compiled by people that look up to her. And so this contains a collection of teachings on becoming fearless, breaking free of destructive patterns, developing patience, kindness, and joy amid our everyday struggles, unlocking our natural warmth, intelligence, and goodness. Let's open number 10. We don't need to change ourselves. Let's explore this idea. And hello, Speckles. I'm doing well, thank you. When people start to meditate or to work with any kind of spiritual discipline, they often think that somehow they're going to improve, which is a sort of subtle aggression against who they really are, already, in this moment. It's a bit like saying, if I jog, I'll be a much better person. If I could only get a nicer house, I'd be a better person. If I could meditate and calm down, I'd be a better person. Or the scenario may be that they find fault with others. They might say, if it weren't for my husband, I'd have a perfect marriage. If it weren't for the fact that my boss and I can't get along, my job would be just great. And if it weren't for my mind, my meditation would be excellent. But loving kindness, or Maitri, which, fun fact, as far as I know, also means friendship in Sanskrit. And I love friendship being also translated as loving kindness. Yes, my friendship with Susan. What I really mean is my loving kindness with Susan. That's a good idea. But loving kindness, or Maitri, toward ourselves doesn't mean getting rid of anything. Maitri means that we can still be crazy after all these years. We can still be timid or jealous, or full of feelings of unworthiness. The point is not to try to change ourselves. Meditation practice isn't about trying to throw ourselves away and become something better. It's about befriending who we are already. The ground of practice is you or me or whoever we are right now, just as we are. That's the ground. That's what we study. That's what we come to know with tremendous curiosity and interest. Number 10. We don't need to change ourselves. A lovely section. And Linnea Alveria, Linnea Alvira, one of these days you will teach me how to pronounce your name. So I guide people on the right path. I don't claim to know a right path compared to a wrong path, but I do know that your path is made right by your commitment to it. When we cause harm to others or to ourselves, we do so when we are debating between this or that, right and wrong. It's in the dissonance between two paths that we end up causing such a commotion. What is right about a path is your faith in it, your determination to succeed. With that, it all becomes right. Crazy guy, you are wondering, do I believe that the pain and suffering that we are all experiencing means something in the grand scheme? That's not a decision I can make for you, but it is a decision that we can make. Whether you grow from what you have gone through is always a potential. But to serve that potential requires your conscious effort. It's not going to happen by itself. And thank you, Fallen Hastur, for your rose. Hari Om Tat Sat. And another question you asked, Crazy Guy, was if I believe that this world is salvageable. What you are pointing out is its potential, and that potential is always going to be there. This means two things. The first is that the capacity to get better is something that will never go away. There is always an opportunity to make a difference. And the second, it's just a rephrasing of the first. That because of that, there will always be a problem somewhere. Because the potential for growth will always be. From one perspective, it's a positive, and from another, it's a negative. The potential always being there means that it's always going to get better. The potential always being there means that it's never going to be best. And thank you, Mari, for your heart me. Hari Om Tat Sat. And Chastity Rubbles, you ask, how can you help the love of your life with severe schizophrenia? Is it spiritual or science? Hearing and seeing people? Both. we are allowed to value both perspectives. Science has come a long way in understanding the physiological and neurological treatments for the schizoaffective spectrum. And it has a long way to go as well. That's for sure. Every day we are learning more things about the mind. I heard a statistic, for example, that it is unknown if anyone who is blind ever also had schizophrenia. No one quite sure knows why that is true. There's so many things we don't know yet, scientifically. But that doesn't mean that medical science isn't helpful. There can be lots of things we can learn through it. From a spiritual perspective, it's one of the many sensitivities to the subtle world. And from one perspective, you could frame it as some mystical dimension that they're in tune with. However, I would split the difference between science and spirituality and call it a sensitivity to their own subconscious. Psychoanalysts such as Carl Jung, which you either love or hate, he said that the subconscious is something very mysterious and not something we fully understand. It is very mystical in many ways, because the subconscious of one person can sometimes overlap with the subconscious of others. We find across cultures, across times, many residents of the subconscious being shared, even when there isn't conscious communication. In ancient times, there have been many people who, by modern standards, we might diagnose with a schizoaffective disorder. But we technically can't retroactively diagnose anything as a disorder when it wasn't contributing to a lack of order. There is a way to utilize certain neurodivergent traits in a way that only increases order. So if it increases order, then it's technically not a disorder. The traits are still there, but they're no longer a defect. They are seen as a positive. And in psychology, the difference between a positive trait and a negative trait is literally that. Whether there is a presence of something or an absence of something. And the transition from understanding absence to presence can be very difficult, but very practical. You could call schizophrenics someone who's dissociated from reality. That's phrasing the trait in terms of a negative. But you could reframe it just as equally as a sensitivity to something that we are unaware of. Whether you call it another world or the subconscious doesn't change whatever it is that they are aware of. So it's a presence of a kind of sensitivity. I believe that with a very healthy spiritual practice, it can become a beautiful thing. And so, just as you mentioned in description of your partner, or I don't know if they're your partner, you said they're the love of your life, which could be many things to someone. Just as you have described them as such, it is the love which will go from disorder to order. when someone receives that love, you are only a benefit in their life. Yes, you want to marry them. How lovely is that? And I'm so grateful that they have someone who appreciates all of the lovely things that you see in them. And that's wonderful. Thank you. And thank you, Dagger, for your rose a moment ago. Hari Om Tat Sat. And hello, Shakira. And thank you for your heart me as well. Jai Sita Ram. And thank you, Inner Light Vibes, for your hand hearts. Radhe Radhe. Mitro, you are wondering, what if your parents want you dependent on them? We were at some point. It's not like we came out of the womb and walked away. Thank you, I am going to now start my life. We have to earn our independence through growing up. But sometimes our parents are just unwilling to let us grow up. And sometimes they are unable to make that choice for themselves, and so we have to. If you're not going to let me do my own thing, then I have no choice but to set this boundary with you so that I can. And sometimes that's enough for them to realize, oh, you don't need to depend on me anymore. Now I see that you have taken an actionable decision that has proven me wrong. And if they are open to witnessing that potential in you, then they will learn from you that it's safe to make that decision. Sometimes they're not ready to make that decision because they feel attached to that feeling of being needed. It's a beautiful thing to be a parent and feel like you have such a purpose. And when your children don't give you that purpose anymore, oh, how are we to be fulfilled with our sense of identity? That's a difficult thing. And so I certainly don't blame the parents out there that struggle with that. But know that that's their own business, not something that you have to fix for them. The best thing you can do is to set your boundaries and grow up. It's what they would have wanted anyway. If they just, remembered. Yes, they are your child, but they are also the child of the universe. At some point, every parent has to take off their crown of parentage and give it to the universe. Alright, thank you for giving this opportunity to be the parent of this soul. Now I pass on the torch. Like in marriage. How many mothers talk to the bride in private? Alright. Make sure he washes behind his ears. He's always developing a rash behind there. Make sure you take care of him. And thank you, the happiest hippie, for your finger heart. Hariom Tat Sat. Doom Night, you share that your cats have been listening to me a lot lately, Yam. They seem pretty blissed out. I think you've got it the other way around. They are giving me their energy. I am merely a channel for the divinity within the felines. When I was born with cradle cap, which I don't actually know a lot about, but it can give rise to pneumonia or, some other complications, which can be kind of scary for the parents and the doctors as they figure it out. When I was left alone for just a few minutes in a room, my childhood cat, Simba, licked it all off me. And for a brief moment, my mother was terrified that now she's infected my head with bacteria or something, it's gonna get worse. So when she brought me to the pediatrician again, she inquired about the cradle cap being licked off. And my doctor said, actually, it's cleared up. You can thank your cat. I didn't even know it could happen this way. So that cat looked after me as if I was her child. And so I have to look up to all cats now as if they are my mother. For I owe part of my life to them, at least the quality of it, that was very much made possible by them. Exactly, Gregor. The cat had the siddhis. And thank you, Smarky Smarkson, for your rose. Radhe, Radhe. Mitra, you share that you have a cat named Guinevere. How lovely is that? I like that name. I am curious what it means. And Moonsa, you ask, are black cats different in their powers? It's a good question. I think the full nature of a cat's powers is not something they're gonna let us know easily. That's forbidden knowledge. One night I was laying in bed with my friend, and they were talking with me about the nature of love and the universe. And we stumbled upon this profound idea that we didn't feel like we deserved to know ourselves. And so my friend said, "This is forbidden knowledge." And we agreed. And so we went to sleep without saying another word. And when I woke up the next day, I forgot what it was. And I've never mentioned it to them since, or vice versa. It really was forbidden knowledge. The universe was like, yeah, you don't get to know that anymore. And every time I think about it, I am just as baffled. Because I don't even remember what started that conversation. Now, we've had a good stream 3 hours long. I think it's a good place to stop for today. Yesterday we did a little longer, but I think it's time to start wrapping things up. A nice little live stream today. Now, I look forward to the future of today. I have to measure my waist for my grandmother, who is buying clothes for me. And I would love to work on my to-do list, like doing a guided meditation video or a tutorial on chanting for my ASMR channel. Lots of stuff to do today. But before we go, there are 3 things I'd like to do with you all. The first is listen to your answers for a question of the day. The second is to read another portion of Roar of the Ganges. And the third is to do a mantra. Today's mantra is one for Kali, the divine feminine in her form in which she annihilates the universe. Very lovely. Just like the mother says, I put you into this world, I can take you out of it. That's the power of the mother. Not only does she manage creation, she also manages annihilation. Okay, my question of the day, though, was, what is an example sentence setting a boundary respectfully? 2 days ago, we asked the question, what is your favorite part of your personality that you'd like to refine? And many people conveyed the idea of being open. However, their openness often led to being overwhelmed. So yesterday I asked, how do you be open without getting overwhelmed? And many people said by setting boundaries. So how do we set boundaries respectfully? What is a model sentence, a template, perhaps? Now I like that answer, Doom Knight. Walking away. Yeah, sometimes it's just that simple. There is no need to explain anything. It says a lot just to walk away. Dansuela, you share by saying, I need to have some space to reflect on this. I love that. Valuing what they've shared and also respecting your own ability to process it on your own time. That's a great one. Now, call me DJ. I think you are just asking. But it could be used to express a boundary. I don't understand. Can you tell me what's going on? Noel, you share. Thank you for expressing your need to me. I'll try to be as clear with you. I love that, Noel. It's wonderful. But yes, you are legit asking. Call me DJ. Right now we are discussing this question of the day, so we can all learn from each other in setting boundaries, which is a vital skill to have that we are often not taught. And live your highest potential. You share that people who don't speak up for the right usually get taken advantage of. Boundaries help the person. I agree. And you also shared that you talk about boundaries in the 6th chapter of your book. I love that. I think it is definitely a vital thing to learn. And so I'm happy that you have a place for others. Call me DJ, you ask a good question. If it is a boundary for yourself, why does it need to be respectful of others? That's a great question. And I think the way you are using the word respect, I agree with. That we don't have to agree with others' demands. But I'm using the word respect in a little different way. Respect is how to deliver a boundary which does so non-offensively. Anna, you share, it's not you, it's me. But you hate this sentence, by the way. You know, factually speaking, it makes a lot of sense. But it's used so often that people can take it the wrong way. That's for sure. And Ale or Ale, you're wondering, what means setting boundaries? Good question. We all have our comfort zone. And when people overstep our comfort zone, when they get in the way of our well-being, then setting a boundary means that we are defining where our needs are so that we can have a healthy relationship that doesn't impede on each other. Marcy, you share, will is free, my present ain't, respect it or move along. My goodness. I know I'd have to shut up if someone said that to me. It's so powerful. I'd need a moment to think about it. That's for sure. And Deed Divine, you share that you used to really struggle with this, but not anymore. I'm happy to hear that. Yeah. MJ, you share, protecting my peace and well-being is my priority. That's nice. And Alfie, you share, I value your voice as much as mine, so I ask for such neutral grounds, and your grounds are mine. That's okay. Mine to watch, yeah. I feel you. A neutral ground will be a good equality. Then positives are choice. You are a wordsmith. And Joanna, you share, I'm sorry if I'm not able to accommodate your demands, but I have to look out for my own needs. That's a great one. Yeah. And Gimme, you share that you struggle to answer this one. It's speaking volumes though. Well, I hope you can take some insight from the many wonderful people here who have spent a little more time, perhaps, thinking about it. And it's okay to admit that there are areas in which we can improve. Setting boundaries is not an easy task, that's for sure. And thank you, Evelyn. And thank you, Annie, for your heart, me too. Radhe, Radhe. Keiko, you share that you cannot make yourself set boundaries at all. You cannot even voice it. Well, I hope you find your voice and discover what is possible. Now my scrolling text, I don't know how long that's been not up, but it's a good banner. Nonetheless, I'll keep it up. And thank you, John F., for your rose. Radhe, Radhe. I appreciate everyone's input, especially on today's more difficult question. But it sounds like we have been coming to understand how to set boundaries more. And it's really not about them. It's about our own abilities and the respect we have for our needs. I hear you, but I'm not able to process it fully at this time. I need some space so I can think about it. Now, let us read from another section of the Roar of the Ganges. Then we'll do a mantra for the Divine Feminine and we'll call it a day. This book takes place in India, on the banks of the Ganges, a river in North India. Well, goes throughout a lot of India. It's a very spiritually revered river, also known as the Ganga. Here we take a journey through the eyes of Mark. Mark was a computer scientist who was newly wed and newly divorced. He was then known as Swami Sivananda after he took sannyas and became a monk, who is the author of this book. And he has given me his expressed permission, with prayers and best wishes, to read this book to all of you. I inquired if I needed to encourage you all to buy it, since I knew that I was essentially giving a free audiobook of it. And he politely affirmed to me that this book will be made as a free PDF, so you don't need to buy it in the near future. This journey takes us towards his taking of sannyas, becoming a monk, and all of his thoughts, contradictions, debates with himself and others before finally making that decision to be a spiritual renunciant. And thank you, this is my show, for your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paper cranes. 8, if I counted correctly now. Many of them. Radhe, Radhe. Very humbling. Lots of origami. I love it. In the office, I was introduced to the brahmachari, the student who served as Swami Brahmananda's secretary. This Swami Brahmananda is someone that he was looking forward to meet, as he has heard a lot about. He said I could meet the Swami at 5 p.m. I hoped Swami Prakash, his friend that took him there, would not mind if I missed his chanting class. At the appointed time, I gently knocked at the door to Swami Brahmananda's room. I was greeted by a willowy man in his 70s, whose brown face was deeply creased with wrinkles. Gray stubble crossed his recently shaved head. His frail body was wrapped in faded ochre robes, yet his sparkling eyes suggested a vitality far younger than his years. His robust smile conveyed warmth and kindness. He escorted me inside and sat on his cot. I touched his feet with reverence and sat before him on a small woven mat spread on the floor. I glanced around his sparsely furnished room. Only a cot, cabinet, and 2 low tables stood on the bare cement floor. One table, cluttered with books, papers, and personal items, apparently served as his desk. The room was illumined by a single bare light bulb hanging by its wires from the ceiling. The walls were unadorned, except for a brightly colored Hindu calendar identifying auspicious days and religious festivals. The 2 windows were covered by screens and steel bars, screens for mosquitoes and bars for monkeys. His modest room was typical of ashram accommodations throughout India. By Western standards, however, it might have resembled a prison cell. In fact, rooms in monasteries everywhere are commonly referred to as cells, and their occupants are frequently called inmates. Nevertheless, the Swami seemed quite comfortable with his accommodations. Swami Brahmananda cast his gentle eyes upon me and asked, "I was told that you know my dear friend, Gangadhara. How is he?" "Yes, Swamiji," I replied politely. Swami Gangadhara is a good friend of mine. He is doing quite well. He moved to New York and is going by his old name, Peter, these days. He asked me to convey his regards to you." "He moved to New York?" "Yes, Swamiji. He enrolled in Columbia University and is studying Sanskrit and Indian philosophy." "Ah, that is very good," the Swami remarked. "And you? Are you also studying at Columbia University?" "No, Swamiji. I recently completed a 3-year course in Vedanta and Sanskrit as taught by Swami Dayananda at his ashram in America." "In America? Is there so much interest in Vedanta in America?" "Well, certainly not as much as here in India, but American students are very dedicated. I was one of a group of 50 students. All of them were bright and highly motivated." "Yes, I know that American students are very dedicated. Swami Gangadhara was one of my brightest students." "I'm not surprised," I said. "He told me how much you had taught him. That's why I wanted to come and meet you." "Did it freeze for everyone?" "Donsuela, you share that it froze. For me it seems that it's not frozen." I think it might have been her internet. But nonetheless, we can have a conscious pause in case that it returns. Alright. Our conversation quickly shifted to Vedanta. Swami Brahmananda began to expound in a poetic but somewhat obscure manner about its ultimate truths. He declared life's highest goal to be a state of non-duality in which one exists utterly non-separate from Brahman, absolute reality. He said, "We have fallen under the spell of Maya, an incomprehensible force that spins a web of illusion and deludes us all, making the unreal seem real and the real seem unreal. When the veil of Maya is pierced," he explained, "you discover the Atma shining within as Shuddha Chaitanya, pure consciousness, brilliant and self-luminous like the sun. It is forever pure, untainted by the mundane world, just as sunlight remains untainted when it falls on a filthy gutter. It is limitless and infinite, like the vast ocean into which all the world's mighty rivers continuously flow. This consciousness pervades the universe as the very substratum of existence. It is the ultimate reality, the supreme Brahman. You must dive deep within your heart to discover the infinite bliss of Brahman. When you achieve utter absorption in the state of samadhi, your ego will dissolve. Then you will merge with Brahman like a doll made of salt dissolving into the ocean. After merging with Brahman, you will abide in the state of non-duality." It was easy to see why Peter had been so enthralled by Swami Brahmananda's teachings. The elderly Swami was indeed an inspiring teacher. He seemed genuinely saturated with the vision of the sages. In his presence, I felt momentarily transported to dizzying spiritual heights, as I vicariously enjoyed his ethereal, breathtaking perspective. I had glimpsed these rarefied environs before, elevated by the inspired vision of other teachers. But after each of my brief ascents, I descended again to the mundane planes of limited experience. Those teachers had guided me to stunning insights, but not to an abiding, unwavering vision. Clarity came for me later with the help of my guru's more methodical approach in which we systematically unfold these same teachings. After a few moments' reflection, I remarked, "In the presence of someone like you, Swamiji, it seems possible to experience these highest truths, at least momentarily. But those insights seem to fade so quickly, like delicate flowers under the blazing summer sun. How can one transform momentary insights into abiding knowledge? How can one dwell continuously in the state of non-duality? Are there particular Vedanta texts that explain this well?" "You see," he continued, "it is a matter of theory and practice. Vedanta is just theory. It explains everything properly, but that is not enough. Without practice, without deep samadhi, you will never reach the state of non-duality. Merely reading a book on cooking will not teach you how to cook. You must go to the kitchen and practice. Scriptural study is like reading cookbooks. It is necessary, but it is not enough. You must practice samadhi. you must train yourself and meditate for hours each day. Only with such practice will you be successful. A warning bell sounded in my mind. I had heard this theory/practice metaphor discussed many times. This approach had been strongly criticized by traditional gurus, including those of the Kailash ashram, for deviating from the original teachings of Shankara and the great rishis who preceded him. According to them, Vedanta is not just a theory, but a pramana, a self-sufficient means for discovering the truth of oneself. When I first heard this distinction, its significance escaped me. It seemed like splitting hairs, but as my process of inquiry continued, its importance grew apparent. Is it possible, I wondered, that Swami Brahmananda had fallen away, to some extent, from the traditional teachings of Vedanta? Under the circumstances, it would have been extraordinarily impolite for me to raise this issue with him. Besides, I had already taken too much of his time. But I looked forward to discussing this with Swami Dayananda after his arrival in Rishikesh. I thanked Swami Brahmananda for granting me the opportunity to meet him, especially on such short notice. He made me promise to deliver a message to Peter upon my return to America. I bent down to touch his feet once again before leaving. As I returned in a noisy auto rickshaw to our ashram, the setting sun cast its deep orange rays on the hillside. I was too late for chanting class, but thankfully in time for dinner. Unfortunately, we are all just in time for our chanting, which we will do before we end. And what a lovely encounter with Swami Brahmananda on the difference between theory and practice. Thank you all for listening with me. And thank you for those who sent a gift whilst I read. Thank you, Annie, for your team bracelet. Hari Om Tat Sat. And this is my show. Thank you for another 3 paper cranes. Jai Sitaram. And thank you, Jen Singh, for your finger heart. Hari Om Tat Sat. And this is my show. Thank you for 449 roses. My goodness. You all can go home with 2 roses each. Thank you. And thank you, Sav, for your trio of finger hearts. Jai Sitaram. And thank you, Asma, for your heart me. Hari Om Tat Sat. The chanting we are doing today is for Kali, who is the divine feminine in her dark form. That is, she represents the shadow side of ourself, which we often don't like to acknowledge. So this is a kind of shadow work, a validation towards that part of our being. With energy we can create, but we can also use that same energy to destroy. So this mantra is for her. I'm going to minimize the background music and maximize hers in a moment, but I'll reveal the mantra first. This one's a little long, but it is pronounced Om Kali Mahakali Kali Ke Parameshvari Sarvananda Kare Devi Narayani Namostute. And as we chant it, it's okay if you mispronounce it and mess up the rhythm. I'm sure I will too, as I just did with Narayani. But listening to the background music will really help. And it means something like Om Kali, Great Kali, the Dark Mother, Supreme Mistress of all bliss, who does all, O Goddess, O Narayani, I bow to thee. And 2,500 years ago, it would not have been rendered in Latin text like this. It would have been rendered in the ancient script known as Brahmi, which looks like this. So that's a fun nod to the ancients who would have written it like this, to give you that feeling of how old this is. Let us continue. Kali Kali Ke Parameshwari Sarvananda Kare Devi Narayana Namostute. Om Kali Mahakali Kali Ke Parameshwari Sarvananda Kare Devi Narayani Namostute. Om Kali Mahakali Kali Ke Parameshwari Sarvananda Kare Devi Narayani Namostute. Kali Mahakali Kali Ke Parameshwari Sarvananda Kare Devi Narayana Namostute. Om Kali Mahakali Kali Ke Parameshwari Sarvananda Kare Devi Narayani Namostute. Om Kali Mahakali Kali Ke Parameshwari Sarvananda Kare Devi Narayani Namostute. Om Kali Mahakali Kali Ke Parameshwari Sarvananda Kare Devi Narayani Namostute. Om Kali Mahakali Kali Ke Parameshwari Sarvananda Kare Devi Narayani Namostute. Om Kali Mahakali Kali Ke Parameshwari Sarvananda Kare Devi Narayani Namostute. Om Kali Mahakali Kali Ke Parameshwari Sarvananda Kare Devi Narayani Namostute. Om Kali Mahakali Kali Ke Parameshwari Sarvananda Kare Devi Narayani Namostute. Om Kali Mahakali Kali Ke Parameshwari Sarvananda Kare Devi Narayani Namostute. How fun. And here is a statue of that form that we are meditating upon. She is very powerful, as you can see, with 1,000 heads, 1,000 arms, weapons in each hand, and a mala of heads around her neck. The ultimate Shakti of oblivion. Thank you. Thank you, Isabella, for your trio of roses a few minutes ago. Radhe, Radhe. And my favorite style of meditation, creatine, is mantra japa, where we meditate on such verses to get us into trance-like states, for example. And thank you, Liz, for your tiny. Yippee! And thank you, Moni Love, for your rose. Hari Om Tat Sat. And Isabella, thank you for your quartet of roses. Jai Sita Rama. And thank you, This Is My Show, for your generosity in gifting a subscription to Kelly James, Luis Alejandro, Sakura Dubs, Auntie, and Alyssa. I am very honored to be in the service of all of them in any way that I can. And I'm very grateful that you have provided this opportunity for me. This is my show. Hari Om Tat Sat. And thank you, Louis, for your presence always. Thank you, John F., for your tiny. Yippee! And your friendship necklace. And 10 cloud breads. Radhe, Radhe. Now, as always, I will be uploading the recording of this to my Yamsox Lives YouTube channel. It is there for you in case you ever want to get the most out of these live streams, which can be very long and have many different segments. If there's parts of them that you want to watch and other parts you don't have to watch anything in particular, since in the chapter description there are timestamps to every section down to the minute. And Sky Guardian has volunteered to clip the readings and chantings, and those will be in their own dedicated playlists now as well, in case you just want to read the last section for context, or listen to me read, rather. And in that way, it's all there for you for free. Now, besides the Yamsox Lives YouTube channel, there's also Yamsox ASMR, where we've been reading through the Bhagavad Gita, one chapter at a time, with a whispered tone. So it's not super formal and rain sounds in the background. It's a very relaxing experience. What else was I going to say? I was going to say that I look forward to doing some other kinds of videos on my ASMR channel as well, like doing some guided meditations and other chanting sessions or tutorials for relaxation and fulfillment. A few weeks ago now, we also uploaded a talking you down from a panic attack video, taking a more spiritual approach where we validate your setting, where you find yourself in, your body, your mind, and your sense of self. And the last thing I wanted to advertise is what's on the microphone. These yams and sweet potatoes. This is a ridiculous thing that is on the store section of the link tree in my bio. In case you ever wanted anything in return for supporting me. There's that, or the tiny beanie that says yippee on it, which is a good quality toque, if I do say so in my own Canadian terms. We do love our toques. And right now it helps me support my journey to India this summer, where hopefully I shall, like Mark or Swami Dhammananda ji, be visiting some ashrams and other monasteries and really interfacing directly with the ancient heritage there. Much love, Kimmy. And thank you, Gina, for your pair of roses. Hari Om Tat Sat. And may this be an offering to Sri Radha Krishna, the Divine Father and Masculine, in their all attractive form. Radhe Krishna, Radhe Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Radhe Radhe, Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyam, Shyam Shyam, Radhe Radhe. Thank you all for being here and giving me the opportunity to be of service. May you all have a beautiful rest of your present moment, and I'll see you tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific time. Thank you, Beth, as well, for your final blessing of a rose. Radhe Radhe.